नमस्ते and greetings. I, Purvi Narayan, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav एवं नीति अनुसंधान संस्थान नई दिल्ली. Extend my warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI Web Policy Talk. We are gathered today for a panel discussion on gender, social inclusion, and Union Budget 2025 to 26. As part of IMPRI's sixth annual series of thematic deliberation and analysis of Union Budget 2025 to 26. This discussion is organized by the Gender Impact Studies Center, GISC, IMPRI Impact and Policy Research Institute, New Delhi, as per part of IMPRI Web Policy Talk series. I welcome all of you to this enlightening deliberation and thank you for tuning into this discussion. Now, let me introduce the esteemed gathering. Our chair for the session is Professor Vibhuti Patel, visiting distinguished professor IMPRI, former Professor TIS. We welcome you, ma'am. The distinguished panelists for the session are Professor N. Menimikalai, Director, Center for Women Development Studies, New Delhi, visiting Professor IMPRI. Professor Paramita Saha, Professor, Department of Economics, Tripura University. Dr. Aditi Sawant, Principal, SNDT College of Arts and SCB College of Commerce and Science. Dr. G. Uma, Associate Professor, School of Gender and Development Studies, Indira Gandhi National Open University, IGNOU, New Delhi. Next up, we have Ms. Supriya Jain, Grassroots Leadership and Knowledge Building, Koro, India. And at last, we have Dr. Sanghmitra Dar, Coordinate and Program Lead, Gender Responsive Budgeting, UN Women, India. We welcome everyone. We look forward to learning from our esteemed gathering. Now, without any further ado, let us start the program. To begin this session, I invite Ms. Shruti for a brief presentation. Can we have the presentation? Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope it is clear and I am audible.
Yes,
Shruti, go full
it's
screen.
absolutely clear.
Yes. Go slideshow mode.
Yeah. So, good afternoon, everyone. I am sharing the presentation on gender, social inclusion, and union budget of 2025 to 2026. So, the key highlights of the program are: one of the most noteworthy aspect of the union budget 2025 is the substantial increase in the allocation of gender budget. This reflects the government commitment to address gender disparities and promote women rights through financial investment. The key highlights of the budget 2025 are: rise in the budget. The gender budget for the financial year 2025 and 2026 is rupees 4.49 lakh crores, which constitute the 8.86% of total union budget 2025 and 2026, a 37.5% increase from the 3.27 lakhs crore in a financial year of the 2024-2025 budget. Gender budget statement 2025 and 2026 is India's largest ever gender budget, boosting women's welfare, education, and economic empowerment, with 49 ministries reporting gender specific allocation. This allocation now constitutes 8.86% of the total union's budget, a rise from 6.8 in the prior fiscal year. So, we have a breakdown in our budget allocation. Part A dedicated into the schemes with 100% allocation for women and girls, receiving rupees 1.05 lakh crores, accounting for 23.5% of the total genders budget. Part B encompasses schemes with 30 to 99% of allocation for women, allocated 3.26 lakh crore, making up to the 72.75% of the gender budget. Part C includes schemes with below 30% allocation for women, with an allocation of rupees 16 crores 80,021 and 29 crore, representing 3.75% of the gender budget. So I'm showing and I'm highlighting the part A, part B, and part C of the from the budget. Now, the new initiatives for women. There are several new initiatives in the budget, such as financial inclusion. A new scheme offers term loan of up to 2 crores to 5 lakh rupees first time entrepreneurs, including women and individuals from scheduled caste and scheduled tribes over the next 5 years. Mudra loans extended to women for setting up homestays, promoting tourism and self-employment. Skill development. Establish of 5 national centers for excellence for skilling, focusing on creating a future-ready workforce with special emphasis on training women for in-demand jobs. Social welfare and healthcare initiatives. Nutrition and health. The Saksham Anganwadi and Poshan 2.0 program has been expanded to provide nutritional support to over 8 crore children, 1 crore pregnant women, and 20 lakh adolescent girls. Plan to establish daycare cancer centers in all district hospitals to ensure affordable and timely cancer treatment for women, especially in rural areas. Support for marginalized communities. The above financial inclusion also gives the entrepreneur support. The new term loan scheme also targets entrepreneurs from scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, aiming to bridge the funding gap faced by the marginalized group. Agricultural initiatives. Introduction of Pradhan Mantri Dhan Dhanya Krishi Yojana aimed at boosting productivity, promoting crop diversification, and enhancing post-harvest storage, benefiting farmers, including women in agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, brief presentation. Now, proceeding further, it is my honor and privilege to invite Professor Vibhuti Patel to start the program with her opening remarks. And yeah, ma'am, over to you.
Stuti Sharma, please adjust your screen. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Hello. Yeah.
Yes, Vibhuti, you go ahead with your opening remarks.
Okay. Yeah. So I think for past 3 days, we have been discussing budget, various aspects, both in print media, electronic media, in the social gatherings. The only discussion has been on budget, and IMPRI series also has taken care of so many dimensions of budget. Today's panel discussion is especially focused on gender, social inclusion, and union budget. Gender responsive budgeting is committed to translation of gender commitments into budgetary commitments, and budgetary estimates for the gender concerns in union budget 25-26 is 8.8%, as Madam Shruti also told us, of the total budgetary expenditure, and which comes to 1.6% of the over GDP. In fact, the United Nations has recommended to all nation states to have minimum 5% of GDP allocated to gender concerns, while ours is 1.6% this year. Earlier, it used to be even lower. Part A of the gender budget, which is 100% women-oriented schemes, which are administered through Ministry of Women and Child Development, amounts to near 2% of the estimated budgetary expenditure. And the Ministry of Women and Child Development has got less than 1%, mainly like only 0.53% of the total budgetary expenditure. So as compared to many other ministries, and especially for capital-oriented, CapEx-oriented ministries, Ministry of Women and Child Development has got less than 1%. Union budget 25-26 is marked by decline in public spending and drastic reduction in social sector expenditure, especially when the estimates are adjusted for core inflation rates of 5 to 6%. The central government expenditure as a percentage of total GDP has declined from 14.55% in the previous year, 2024-25, to 14.18% in the estimated budget this year. The revised estimate on centrally sponsored scheme for 24-25 which was like a decline of 18% that we see in the current budget. It also shows that even in that, we find reduction. Budgetary allocation for school education, that was 3.16% of total expenditure, has reduced to 1.55% in the current year. And the same period, allocation for higher education dropped from 1.6% to now less than 1%. That means people will have to depend on the private educational institutions right from the preschool to university level education. Government expenditure on the strengthen the public health and the public that has also reduced from 2.31%, which was during the pandemic year, into 2019, to less than 2%. That means current year has it 1.9%. So total budgetary allocation for MG Narega has also reduced from 2.15% of total expenditure during pandemic year, that was 2019-20 to 1.33% in 25-26, but the amount is quite looks impressive. That is 86,000 crore. But delayed payment has to be deducted. That means the delayed payment in MG Narega is to the tune of 3,000 crores. So the budgetary cuts in education, even the public transport from 11.28% to 10.83%, or rural development from 5.51% to 5.26%, and information technology and telecom sector from 2.41% to 1.88%. It is worrying because now more and more private sources will have to be sourced for the people and for the marginalized section facing multiple vulnerabilities. For them, it's going to be very difficult to negotiate their survival needs and the livelihoods. So the budgetary expenditure for prevention of violence against women and protection of rehabilitation of victims under Mission Sambal and Samarthya, they have also declined substantially. That is almost 50%. So continuing neglect of hunger and malnutrition, that is also very major worrying, as we see in the NFHS 5 report also, both when it comes to stunting and wasting, the problems are very, very serious about child nutrition of women, especially the pregnant and lactating mothers, and also the workers who are implementing the program like ICDS, Integrated Child Development Program, and the NRHM, even the Anganwadi and midday meal budgets, they need to be increased because not only to improve meal quality and expand the coverage, but also the wages of the cooks, wages of the Anganwadi workers, wages of the helpers who just get honorarium. They are not even treated as workers and don't even get the minimum wages. So I think these are some of the important concerns which the gender economists have raised in response to the budget. And the Part A scheme of PM Awas Yojana, for which there has been a much increase, especially after the condition of migrant labor, that has also made Ministry of Labor to come up with a more with a recommendation that PM Awas Yojana should have a major allocation. So the 74% of the Part A goes to PM Awas Yojana as compared to 59%. So, but the implementation, we have to be very, very watchful whether this money allocated for PM Awas Yojana is judiciously spent. So, Finance Ministry has stated that employment will be generated and MSME, because the focus of current budget is ease of doing business, and that's why 48% of MSMEs which have shut down in the post-pandemic period, they need to be rejuvenated, and PM Swanidhi allocation has also been given for that purpose. And the National Assistance Scheme for the marginalized section, in that we are seeing major reduction, and the minorities budget has also gone down. The scholarship program for Dalits and Adivasis and minorities, they have also faced budgetary cuts. So how can budget provide an enabling environment for Dalit, Adivasi, uh, religious minorities, especially Muslim women and persons with disability, gender minorities, in terms of better quality of life in the area of 5 important concerns where we have a gender gap: education, health, employment. Gender-based violence is also increasing in terms of varied forms and intensity, and also increasing their involvement in the decision making, which is also very important. So this is the major framework within which we are going to have today's discussion. We have a very senior economist with us, Professor Paramita Shaha. My first question is to you. What are the gender implications of the Union Budget 25-26 in terms of macroeconomic policies? And does it have a potential to reduce gender gap in health, nutrition, education, employment, and livelihoods? And does it allocate adequate resources to curb gender-based violence and promote safety for women, children, elderly, and persons with disabilities? Over to Madam Paramita Shah. Yes, Professor Shah.
Yes. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Um, at the very beginning, a very good afternoon to you all. And my thanks to IMPRI and especially Professor Patel for having me here. Thank you, Vibhuti. Actually, gender budget is a part of the general budget. So I would like to place the concerns in the context of the union budget that is presented this year. The 8th budget in a row. This year's budget, in a way, carries forward from where they have left last year. Like last year, the concern remains the Gyan, the Garib, youth, Yuba, and Annadata and Nari. And the finance minister talks of development journey towards the destination of Vikshit Bharat. And in this, she talks about a few things. I'd like to start with the budget speech of let me share my screen.
Are you able to share?
I'm trying to find out where it is.
Oh. That green icon you see with arrow? Yeah.
Green icon.
Share. It is written share.
I can't find that.
It is there in the last line where chat, react, share,
The Zoom
Q&A,
window, no?
show
Yeah.
caption.
In Zoom
Can
window.
you send your PPT by email to IMPRI team?
I'll be able to do. Just a minute.
Acha, you will do it.
Chat, share. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then share.
Yes. It is in working mode. You
Yeah.
can make it. Yeah.
I'm going fast.
Yeah.
Fast. You see, this objectives were set up by.
Yeah, you can make it a slideshow mode. You can go on slideshow and start from first. Yeah.
Slideshow. Yeah,
If it's
slideshow.
not possible, then go ahead.
Yeah,
No problem.
yes. Now it's fine.
Yes, it is fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, these are the objectives that the finance minister has set for the budget. Growth, inclusive development, private sector investment are common. We always find this. And now these two really, intrigues me. Household sentiments and spending power of rising middle class. What is this household sentiments? What does sentiments mean? Is it about some mood lifters that the budget is talking about? And what is the middle class? How do you know who are the middle class? These questions pending. Let us go to see what was the context in which the budget was placed. As I say, the focus was Garib, youth, Annadata, and Nari. Engines were to address this, the engines were identified as agriculture, MSME, investment, and exports. And the guiding spirit was inclusivity. To understand the budget, we need to understand how inclusive of the budget was for the Garib, youth, Annadata, and Nari. What I plan to do is first take a look at the general economic environment in which the budget is tabled. My purpose is to understand how allocations are made in order to tackle economic and developmental challenges. The economic survey talks about, presented in the budget tip, notes that global uncertainties and conflicts are the potential challenges of the economy, to the economy. It talks about the economic policy uncertainty index, which is very high due to global concerns about economic policies. Similarly, World Trade Uncertainty Index has risen, driven by trade tensions and policy shift in major economies. The global conflicts and geopolitics in Russia-Ukraine war, Hamas-Israel tensions continue in the Middle East. These are likely to affect the global trade. Disruption in trade transit through Suez Canal can increase the prices, which might affect the external economy of the country. In the domestic front, the survey says the GDP growth has been 6.4%. Consumption demand, that is personal final consumption expenditure, sorry. How do I go back?
Yes, please go ahead. Yeah.
No, I want to go back. How do I do that?
Yeah. You can go back if you move your cursor in the opposite direction.
From the keyboard left arrow also you can use.
Okay.
Keyboard left arrow, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Then consumption demand, gross capital formation, and on the demand side and on the supply side, all have the survey says has increased as share of GDP, but it has increased at a much lower rate than the last financial year. If we look at the sources of growth, in agriculture, it has been 3.8%, which was because of the consistently operating, it was consistently operating above the trend values. because of healthy kharif production, above normal monsoons, and an adequate reservoir level supported by agricultural growth at 8.2%, higher than the average food grain production in the past 5 years. The industrial sector is estimated to grow at 6.2%. Strong growth rates in construction activities driven by infrastructure investment and housing demand and electricity, gas, water supply, and other utility services are expected to support industrial expansion. However, manufacturing exports slowed significantly low due to weak demand from destination countries and aggressive trade and industrial policies in major trading nations. Even then, despite various challenges, India continues to register the fastest growth in the PMI or Purchasing Managers Index. Growth in the service sector is expected to remain robust at 7.2%, driven by healthy activity in financial, real estate, professional service, public administration, etc. Financial, real estate, and professional services have taken the lead, surpassing the pre-pandemic trend levels. While merchandise imports were merchandise exports widened, India's merchandise trade deficit was covered by India's services trade surplus. On the external front, the surplus in the services trade, record remittances has helped current account deficit to be contained at 1.2% of the GDP. Stable capital flows ensured India's foreign exchange reserve to a level when it is enough to cover 90% of foreign debt and import bills for 10 months. Coming to the figures of state of the economy, as mentioned earlier also, the growth rate of GDP around 6.4% is moderate, and the attempt of the government to keep the deficits within the target and gradually reduce it has kept fiscal deficit target at 4.4% of GDP, lower than revised estimate of 4.8% in the 24-25 budget. Similarly, revenue deficit is targeted as 1.5, lower than 1.9 of the revised estimate. Primary deficit target is 0.8%, lower than revised estimate at 1.3%. Government expenditure is 7.4% higher than the revised estimate of 2024. Factoring in inflation, expenditure growth is not much. Capital expenditure expected to increase by 10.1% over the last year's revised estimate. Revenue expenditure to increase by 6.7% over the last financial year. Now, fiscal deficit is an indicator of borrowings by the government for financing its expenditure. While revenue deficit is the excess of revenue expenditure over revenue receipts, such a deficit implies that the government needs to borrow funds to meet recurring expenses which may not provide future returns. The cut in fiscal deficit, the pathway of fiscal deficit decline is important. If a fiscal deficit can be reduced by increased revenue earnings or by increased borrowing or by cutting down expenditure, then if this expenditure cut is due to cut in social sector's outlay, then it becomes a problem. Now we can take a look at the different revenue sources. The sources are identified as borrowings and other liabilities, 24% of the revenue comes from borrowings, which is less than the 27% of last year. Income tax contributes 22%. It has increased compared to last year's. GST and other taxes contribution remains same. And all other taxes, corporate tax, non-tax receipts, excise duties, customs duties, non-debt capital duties, all remains similar as the last year content. Only the contribution of income tax is more, and it is interesting to say that the corporate tax contribution is much less than income tax, in spite of so much of boosting of corporate activities. And the expenditure, where does the money go? State share of tax and duties constitute 22%, interest payment 20% because of the earlier borrowings. Central sector scheme percentage remains same as 16. Centrally sponsored scheme also have 8%. Finance commission and other transfers to the states is reduced compared to the earlier 9%. Other expenditure also has reduced. Defense expenditure remains same, pensions remain same, major subsidies remain same. At each budget, some promises are made, and then in the next budget, the new projects come in. If you would remember, the last budget, there were employment-linked incentives were announced. In the context of agriculture, it was proposed that there will be development of climate-resilient varieties and raising productivity, sufficiency oilseed production, natural farming. 1 crore farmers across the country will be initiated into natural farming. And similarly, there were these internship programs were announced. Now, if we look at the state of implementation of the employment-linked program, you'd see that these things are still not operationalized. Only in the internship opportunities that was promised, 1.27 lakh internship opportunities have been posted by the companies at the site hosted by the government, PM internship program. Against those, 6.2 lakh applications have been received, and selection process by the companies and joining of the interns are going on. And women-led development during last financial year, it's 6.8%, which is expected to rise in this budget. Employment scenario with all these attempts where unemployment rate declined from 6% in 2017-18 to 3.2% in 23-24. National average of labor force participation rate is 45.1%, and worker population ratio is 43.7%. The proportion of self-employed workers in the workforce has risen from 52.2% to 58.4% in 23-24. Proportion of women in regular wage salaried employment decreased. More women engage in self-employment or contribute to household enterprises because they don't find job outside. In rural areas, MG-NREGA is not only provided, as mentioned in the survey, not only provided employment, but helped in boosting rural ecological health through improvement in soil quality and plantation area has improved over rural water management for agriculture through integrated watershed management assets. Allocation is stagnant at the previous year's level at 86,000 crore, while actual expenditure in the last financial year was above 89,000 crores. Percentage generated declined to 2,020.11 crores in 24-25. Average percentage generated per household is 42.77 days instead of the targeted 100 days. Women employment were 57.97 days average. Number of problems plagues MG and Rega. The problems of delayed payment, problems of direct benefit transfers where there are many issues with registering with the banks. The gender budget allocation in the total union budget this year increased to 8, as mentioned already, 8.86% from 6.8%, the largest ever gender budget. The 4.49 lakh crore allocated for welfare of women and girls in the gender budget statement, an increase of 37.25% over the gender budget allocation in the last financial year. But sometimes the calculations in the gender budget is a mere jugglery of figures. Sometimes this program is, attached to gender budget. Last year it was PM Awas Yojana was attached to it. These are some other program is counted in the part A. All this, boost up the budget, but how much it actually helps, that remains to be seen by looking at the individual allocations for different programs, different schemes, the centrally sponsored schemes, and etc. Health, education remains most important for women welfare. This year's allocation to the Department of Health and Family Welfare shows a 10.8% increase from the revised estimates. Department of Health Research gets additional 39,000 crores. The schemes for medical tourism, medical education, daycare centers for cancer patients, healthcare benefits to nearly 1 crore platform workers through Ayushman Bharat was announced. However, it is painful to see that senior citizen health insurance scheme received no allocation. And then there was this talk of custom duty exemption of 36 life-saving drugs for rare diseases like cancer and chronic conditions. Here we must realize that these life-saving drugs are exorbitantly priced. A mere custom duty exemption of 15-20% doesn't reduce the price at all, and this duty exemption is not passed over by reduction, most of the time reduction of prices. So these are only, I was saying, there was this word, the sentiments, looking at the sentiment is the more, by saying this, you're trying to tinker with the mood. These are mood lifters, but whether these are actually going to be effective in helping the people remains doubtful. Then I was looking at the central sponsored schemes. In Sakshan, Anganwadi, these were discussed already. So all shows marginal, very marginal increase, which if you consider the inflation rate is no increase at all. So these are the figures that schemes, social the social sector schemes, scholarships and all. I don't want to read out the figures, since we can all see here. Yeah. I would like to say about this National Social Assistance Program, of which the old age pension scheme is the most important one. It received the same budget this year also, which is really painful, because these schemes, these assistance to a large number of elderly people in the unorganized sector depends on this. This is a meager amount that is given, and that also doesn't show any rise. Then for the cities, there were some programs like Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban. These red dots shows that the allocation hasn't increased, and the green dots are new schemes. And these two, Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana, National Urban Livelihood Mission, Deen Dayal Jan Ajivika Yojana, Shehri, and Smart Cities Mission are not being continued. They have received no fund. Allocation to select departments in crores. Now, instead of schemes, I was looking into the allocation to different departments. All shows marginal increase. I think I should end here.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Paramita Saha. In higher education, there has been major decrease also, but I think overall your analysis of macroeconomic scenario and reflecting on the current budget, I think we got a framework for discussion. And my second question is to Dr. Sangamitra Dar, that what are the most important aspects and the new elements that you see in the Union Budget 25-26, and through gender lens and through the social sector lens, what do you see that we gender economists have demanded Ministry of Gender Equality that is guided by intersectional, participatory, decentralized, outcome-based gender responsive budgeting? Do you think that it is possible?
Vibhuti ma'am, Sangamitra Dharji is not able to join. I'm contacting her. We can move to next.
Okay. Yeah, so Professor Manimeklai, I would like to ask whether does the Union Budget address the major challenges faced by women in informal sector, and does it fulfill the promise of the state-funded urban housing scheme for migrant workers? And what is your analysis of budgetary allocation for women entrepreneurs, and also the does budget address the needs and demands and aspirations and dreams of the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and marginalized religious communities?
Yeah, thank you very
Over
much.
to Professor Manimeklai.
Yeah, thank you. I hope I am audible.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, very important questions Professor Vibhuti raised, particularly concerning the marginalized and the socially excluded section. So with the given time, I'll try to focus on the important points, and we may have discussion later. Yes, the first one is about addressing the major challenges faced by women in the informal sector. Since economic reforms policies have been implemented, we have been on the journey of falling more into the informalization and its associated social security, lack of social security, safety net, etc. And it is all the more important that in the informal sector, some kind of social safety net, social security are ensured. And it was very much emphasized that in the Viksit Bharat statement that there will be a focus on 100% skilled labor with meaningful employment, and which 70 at least bring in to the folder of employment 70% of the women. As of now, it was also presented by the previous speaker that we have touched the 40%, and you all know that 90% or more than 90% are in the informal sector, and that this 40% also, 40% of women or participation rate also has been in the recent phenomenon. Like it was still last couple of years back, it was only below 25 or moved slightly to 27 and 30, and now 37 as per the PLFS survey. And of course, this 40% is also majorly contributed by rural employment. And what is it actually trying to convey to us? Are women going back to agriculture and rural? Is still rural employment provided? In the sense, it is feminization of labor and agriculture, but at the same time, it is equally the disguised unemployment, where only remaining employment there are to be shared by the women, where men already migrated outside. And thanks to some industrial clusters there, I can quote Tamil Nadu example, where the textile cluster in the entire West Tamil Nadu, Tripur, Coimbatore, etc., very much caters to the needs of the rural, very, very dry, backward regions of rural area, women and girls to get into employment. Either they fly the buses or they take up temporary shelters there, hostels there, residential facilities, etc. So in this sense, it was like it's the Deen Dayal program is also attached with that. And in this budget, what is happening? So as it was already mentioned that these sectors, both Professor Vibhuti and also the earlier speaker, they mentioned that there are either cuts or no increase. So this is very important to be underlined here. So what is required is that in the context of already facing the economy, facing the slowdown and high rural and urban unemployment, it is required that there is a push to kind of in terms of budget allocation to accelerate growth, secure inclusive development, and also stimulate private sector investments in the context where, of course, it's more and more private sector participation. And of course, it is also to uplift household sentiment and enhance the spending power of the middle class, which has very much happened in the recent budget, where the middle class have been kind of, at least again, the women middle class have been given some exemption in terms of the income tax. But there is also other dynamics to be discussed, which needs to be seen in a perspective. Like on the one hand, you have increased the limit, like up to those who are earning up to 12 lakhs per annum need not have to, or exempted. But at the same time, it will also have a cut on the social sector, as we already observed that there will be a cut, and already been also informed that there are cuts both in the education, health, transport, etc. Very important, prominently important, and needy sectors there is a cut. And where some of the sectors where there is an increase also very much exhibits kind of stagnation, or the absolute increase is there, but not in the real terms. So given the inflation, as it was already pointed out, it is very much required that it's not just the absolute increase in the allocation, but the real. So that is also missing. And there are a lot of issues concerning with the protection and safety net in terms of getting the workers under the folder of any social protection for the domestic workers, ASHA workers, Anganwadi workers, because they are kept as informal sector and putting out system like casual laborers, and they go to work, they will, otherwise they won't. So there are a lot of claims by the government that they will try to attend the women, young farmers, rural youth, marginal small farmers, and landless families, where the informalization is very much emphasized. And they will try to cover 5 lakh women under this comprehensive multi-sector rural prosperity and resilience program, etc. But there are 2-3 issues. It was already mentioned that the Mahatma Gandhi Rural Employment Scheme, in which the under budget allocations, in absolute terms, it has increased, but in real terms, it is not. And the increase is also as the percentage of general budget component from 33% to 46%, maybe it might have been prompted by the increase in the number. Like usually it will be more than 50% women in that MNRGA scheme, and now it is 57 recently, and therefore that would have prompted them. And there are also one important area which I want to touch here, both in the rural and urban context. Home-based workers using the social media or any other platform, digital platform, they are engaged in self-employment. So this is the era of self-employment, where we are moving far for a head and decline in paid employment or wage employment. And of course, equally is the unpaid work, which is recent PLFS survey also is quite contradicting that there has been increase in employment and increase in unemployment also. So that in a way informs that the unpaid work has been included there in the collection of data, but it is not paid, and therefore it doesn't reflected in the reduction in employment of unemployment. So these three important areas, and of course street vendors who also belong to this informal sector under the Atmanirbhar Nidhi scheme. They try to kind of provide a revamped scheme for the street vendors to access to enhanced bank loans. I am trying to bring the home-based digital and the media platform workers also there. There are many, even in the apartment, people sitting at home doing some business, right from food-based to other, which doesn't come under the count of the enterprises at all. And there is a need to also collect and provide some kind of support to formalize them. That is not much discussed. Then also the unified payments interface link credit for the with the limit of 30,000, which and with the trying to connect to the capacity development it had also been mentioned there. So these things, of course, there are a step forward, but at the same time, how it will be implemented, whether it will be able to, because one gap which I wanted to earlier mention is that we have a gap in terms of, we allocate. So much is being allocated. I'll also try to bring that data, but there is a gap in spending. So that kind of gap will be taken forward and carried forward in the next year. And that is what I have observed the data, budget allocations for several schemes, wherein the unspent, like the budget 23-24 allocation is somewhat higher, and the next year you haven't spent, the states haven't spent much, and therefore it has been allocated lower allocation for the current in the current budget. And I already talked about this. On the one hand, the work participation rate is on the increase, but at the same time, the gender gap is huge. And you know, the gender gap report also emphasizing that. So unless otherwise the economic participation of women increase, it is difficult. And given that we are in the context of AI and gig economy, digitization of services, etc., and there will be more implications on unemployment, and that needs to be taken care of by proper budget allocation and implementing the same to different sectors. And therefore, the economy needs 78.5 lakh new non-form jobs every year to keep up with the workforce workforce. But there is also kind of what is missing is the lack of roadmap to that. And so there is that's what I want to try to say, that benefit to organized but loss to the unorganized sector as far as the informal sector is concerned. So the tax foregone due to concessions in the direct class, like 1 lakh, and there is also different slab wise, there is some reduction. All these will be definitely benefiting the for organized sector, but it is not to. So in that context, what I'm trying to say that the gain to well off, that is a saving, decline in demand in unorganized sector, that would be the kind of a state wherein it upset whatever increase year you faced will be upset by the decline in demand. So whether it will be really, because the very aim of reducing the taxes and also is to improve the effective demand or increase the middle class to come and spend in the consumption sector, but I am afraid whether that will happen. So that is one important thing. And also, as it was already pointed out, that the gig workers and entrepreneurs will be issued with the health insurance ID cards. But more than these two, I do welcome this, but more than that, we have to have labor reforms, labor market reforms, where safety net is very important. So what would be the budget and how will it be implemented is not clear. Regarding the urban housing scheme, of course, this is what I wanted to say. There is a decline actually in the budget allocation, and in the PMAOI for housing expenditure 23-24 was 21 crore something, 21 and odd, and in 2025 it was the allocation was 30. So there is an increase of 39%, but actual spent was only 13,067 crore. So that had made you to 2025 to only allocate 19 crore. So that is less than.
Professor Manimekla, any centrally sponsored scheme, the union government says that it is the state which doesn't give matching grant, no? So that is the reason for unutilized funds. So
that is I'm also cautioning that the state has the role, the state government has the role, but as it is the absolute number I'm talking, that the unspent grant, there is a responsibility of the central government to motivate the state government to do it, and the reasons to be identified. I fully agree with Professor Vibhuti. And same is true with the Jal Jeevan Mission and the allocation of fund for various other schemes. Regarding the migrant workers, we know that they are the backbone, and there are millions of floating population itself there in different sectors and different packets of the industrial clusters. And I already told about Tirupur. At least around 4 to 5 lakh migrant workers are there any point of time. And given that it is also equally required that at least some protection in terms of their rights, etc. And when you really go and see them, the wage discrimination is there, and the way in which they establish their shelters also, it's open there. Sometimes it's a family, or sometimes a single persons, whether it is man or woman. Mostly the men, the boys migrated from north and northeast states will be found there. So this is the reality, and given that it is also there are the number of schemes functioning, but still the shelter in which, or the residential places where these migrant workers live, some of them are found in the platforms also. So that is a concern, and therefore amenities with protection in the sense the ventilated apartment spaces with sanitation and health that should be there. It is mostly absent, and therefore that is not much spelled out here. So proper housing for migrant workers with a kind of not as a welfare initiative, but as a structural necessity and economic progress. And once they are given with proper accommodation only, they will also come regularly to work, and the capitalist perspective also it will be contributing. So given that the number is very, very huge, it is required a decent housing which will contribute to the well-being of the workers on the one hand, and also to capitalist production on the other. And it is not much found in this. I can say that there is a special window for affordable and mid-income housing fund to provide access to low-cost housing is there, but it doesn't much capture the requirement for the migrant workers, because here the discussion is on migrant workers. So and there are a number of other initiatives with the Urban Challenge Fund, and also SWAYAM, the single window affordable scheme, etc. But it has to be an affordable rental housing complexes also. So the literature informs that there are a number of in the west and also our own neighborhood countries in the South Asia that there is affordable rent housing complexes. So particularly at least in the industrial clusters where huge number of migrant workers are there, in lakhs, they have to be provided with such facilities in order to increase the productivity and also their well-being. And about the women entrepreneurs, I could say that there are a number of schemes already existing, and it is not necessary that I should speak only with this current schemes or support in this budget allocation. And Mudra Yojana is really helping, because I have been working on women entrepreneurs and several women in the petty trade, from the street vendors to minimum tailoring shop kind, and trying to say the scale. The micro enterprises are really utilizing this opportunity, but still there are lack of awareness on the one hand. And also, even if it is rupees 50,000 to 1 lakh, the banks, of course, they are not supposed to ask for the collateral, etc. But when you being women, you go, it is though it is mentioned here as up to 10 lakhs, this Mudra Yojana can be given if some backup is there from the family members, including the spouse or any other source, or you have any collateral, then it is easy. But still, this Mudra Yojanas contribution is good for the past few years. And therefore, the challenge that the women face in the entrepreneurial landscape, which originally we were thinking that it is capital, and it is now not only the, capital to certain extent being addressed by this Mudra Yojana for the micro enterprises. But this year it was told that it will be like capturing the new and first generation entrepreneurs. This is very, very important, and it is a welcoming trend. It will be kind of helping the marginalized also. So women and marginalized sections are not only covered. I should also underline here that 90% of female entrepreneurs, according to IFC report, never been borrowing from formal financial institutions. So this is one of the major issues of concern as far as women entrepreneurship promotion is concerned. So they either rely on the traditional money lenders, or just use this now the MFIs, who are also equally like the old money lenders, and they feel that in terms of structural or the transaction cost, it is very, very easy. And therefore they rely on, because when you go to the banks or any other formal credit organization, it's very difficult to get the formalities or the procedural bottlenecks. But all these will be eased out, and it is for the first time, it is also announced like there will be a 2 crore term loan scheme for 5 lakh first time women, first generation entrepreneurs who are women or from ACSTs or first time entrepreneurs. So that is a welcome trend. But how it will be reaching them? Like the scheme has been announced several days, as it was pointed out by Paramita Saha professor also, that the kind of schemes you announce will be very, very attractive. Whether they will be implemented or it will be reaching to the extent it was like told there or presented there in the budget session, all will be the question that we need to. So 2 crore loan, the maximum means you all know without any explanation to whom it will go, because we are talking about the whole lot of micro enterprises where even taking 5 lakh or 2 lakh or 3 lakh credit itself is a challenge. And therefore this is a huge and big announcement that they will take care of a 2 crore term loan. And we already have, I can give an example there in Tamil Nadu. There is one scheme called NEETS, New Entrepreneurs with Enterprise Development Scheme, where 50% of the loan should go to women. It was emphasized when Ms. Jayalalitha was the CM. And it was like 5 crore, up to 5 crore. Here we are talking about 2 crore. So up to 5 crore they can, but hardly any 5% of the women could avail that, and very often it stay. So this bottlenecks, no, that should be first understood, and why women are not able to, and what is the actual underlining and root cause issues that is to be identified before. Taking the gaps, because when we say that it is implemented, people are not coming forward to take up, and there are also issues related to Nirbhaya fund, which is allocated to the state, and several years they haven't utilized properly, and it was
yes, Professor Mani Meklai, Dr. Aditi Sawant has an important meeting, so I'm taking her, and in the second round I'll take your question about the SCST and minorities. So Professor Aditi Sawant, you have been working in the area of agriculture, and you have also done pioneering research on especially on the farmer suicide and on the cotton farming. And I would like to know from you how the farm sector has been impacted, and what will be the overall this thing about the farm sector. And also you are in the educational institution, you are in the Women's University. So does the Union Budget 25-26 address the educational needs of girls, women, and gender minorities? And being in the Women's University, according to you, what is the topmost priority of the Union Budget for addressing issues of girls' education from pre-primary to the higher education? Over to Dr. Aditi Sawant. Hello? Dr. Aditi Sawant, are you there? Hello? Hello? Is she there?
No, she's not there.
Okay, so Supriya ji, now after listening to two economists, I come to you. Your organization is working in the community for last 30 years, and you have also been championing so many causes of the social sector, especially Right to P campaign and the WASH agenda. So, according to you, how will the union budget impact lives of urban poor women and transgender community in terms of their essential needs of livelihoods, health, nutrition, and the WASH agenda? And after that, I come to the second question. But first, you can answer this question. Yeah.
Yes, sure. Thank you. It was wonderful listening to both the earlier speakers. And as the framework has been clear, I was when the budget came, I'm just trying to find out about all those issues that we work on the ground. What are the provisions that are being made? And frankly speaking, I'm finding it a little difficult. Because budget introduces schemes for rural women and first-time entrepreneurs, but the overall financial commitment remains modest. So so there is a need for inclusive policies and stronger investment to ensure, I would say, meaningful empowerment and social equity. I'm in a low network area, so I'll just keep my video off and speak first. So this budget is set. It was said that it is for urban middle class. Then the question comes: where is the poor urban women? Where is the poor trans women in this scenario? So, as per Labor Bureau data and a declined real monthly income, as indicated by Economic Survey 2025, the women and the marginalized section, they are not only economically backward, but they face gender and social discrimination. Where is the thought process when we think about all these issues, all these different stakeholders which come from marginalized section? And at one end, we say that Constitution provides right to equality to all. And when we look at the budget, there is no adequate focus on women and marginalized section. There has been we've been talking about women entrepreneurs from SC/ST communities. I'm trying to find out where are the provisions from nomadic tribes, denotified tribes, primitive tribes. Where are these women? Are these women in our periphery? Where are they? I'm trying to find out this. Although we've been saying that there has been 3% increase in the WCD budget, there has been oversight remains the lack of investment in gender sensitive public transportation, which 91% of urban women find unsafe and unreliable, which limits their access to employment. Then, or safety, workplace inclusion, urban unemployment, all these issues like where do we search for these things? And the other thing is, we talk about women's workplace participation, but are we thinking about unemployment that we all face at urban and mostly the urban spaces? Because there have been job opportunities, but these opportunities are in informal sectors with low wages. So where are these counted is the another question that comes to mind. I have 3-4 points more here. Then we talk about PM Awas Yojana Urban. There has been substantial increase in the budget, as it has been said. But the reality also speaks that only 73% of PM Awas Yojana were houses registered in women's names. This raises concern in my mind about extent to which these funds are genuinely empowering women. So I was looking at not just statistic, but the approach to which we should look at this budget, its implementation, the way it is being made. And PM Awas Yojana Urban has been shifted from Part B to Part A in the previous years. So artificially inflated gender budget figures without corresponding increase in women's specific spending. So this is also another point which is in my mind. So that goes further saying, when we fund funding, how do we look at outcomes? Is there any correlation between funding and the outcome? So that is another thing that comes to my mind. The third thing, health is a critical indicator for women and most marginalized communities. And we talk a lot about women-led development. And this year, the budget reflect increment progress in key areas. Say, for example, Saksham Anganwadi and Poshan, Ayushman Bharat, and all these, and also menstrual hygiene. All these things, Saksham, Anganwadi, Ayushman Bharat, Poshan, menstrual hygiene for women, they all come at part B of the budget. So part B talks about 30% of the overall, that section's budget. So the question comes, what is the actual impact on the health of the women if it is this much amount is spent, and when we think about these important factors in part B of the budget. The fourth point that comes to my mind is national health mission. ASHA workers, they are actually holding the health system of our country for last 20 years. So are we thinking about safe working condition for them, or their issue of their honorarium still continue to be an issue of demonstrations and andolans and things like that? So that question comes to my mind. Another fifth thing is about, we've been talking about education for all, but when it comes to education, housing, health, we are talking about women, but women is not a homogeneous category. We have to think about all women coming from different castes, women coming from different religion, and the kind of a social discrimination each of the section of women they face. And the most important, which is always forgotten, is the trans community. So I will later on I will talk about it, but deficit in government school into school infrastructure is another point that needs to be highlighted. I was thinking that we need to highlight that point. And fifth, and the second last point is there is a scheme which is talked about by name SMILE. It says the support for marginalized individuals for livelihood and enterprise. And this scheme talks about rehabilitation programs for transgender and beggars. So I have a strong objection when you combine these two stakeholders, trans community, rehabilitation of trans community, and beggars. I think these are two different things. Their struggle, their journey, their life is different. How can we put these two sections in under one scheme? So that itself poses a question that we talk about. We have a global gender gap. We have our gender budget index is low, but we have to think that economic empowerment is multifaceted. It has to go beyond financial support. And while giving that financial support, what is our approach? It is for the education, for the health, for the housing, and the way we look at trans community, specifically trans women. So these are the questions. And lastly, it also talks about when I come from a WASH sector that we work on for women, children, specially able, and all other trans and all other sections of the community. The question is 130 crore has been announced for promoting mechanized sanitation work. I mean, I'm working in this sector for last 16 years, but it has never, how this will be implemented is the question that comes to my mind. We have a law banning manual scavenging, but what is the status today? So I would say it's, for women, credit is important, but what are systemic barriers, and how have we thought about the systemic barriers in all this scenario? Have we collected gender segregated data? How are we going to track the progress when we don't know what is the gap which lies beyond? Actually, there are multiple things that are running in my mind. One more thing, lastly, is Matru Vandana scheme, which talks about 6,000 per mother and no change since 2013. And I understand there is no change. I'm angry about it, but I'm also angry about 6,000 per mother. What does it mean per mother? If a woman don't want to be mother, a woman is a single, a woman has no child, I mean, how are we going to? So the language of the budget is also, which is questioning, which needs to be questioned. That's what is all running in my mind. I'll stop here and would look forward for the next question.
Yeah. Okay. So now I think we turn to Dr. G. Uma, who is from School of Gender and Development Studies, who has also written extensively on gender responsive budgeting, not only for her lessons, but also for public debate. And Dr. Uma, how will union budget impact women in agriculture? That's my question, because you have also worked on the agrarian sector, and previous speakers, they have touched it marginally. And does the union budget 25-26 take care of reproductive health needs of women and gender minorities? And also the concerns of senior citizens, I think, about which not much provision has been made in the current budget. But do you, what can be the impact of this on these three: agrarian sector, reproductive health needs of women, and the impact on senior citizens?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for providing this opportunity, and also thank you so much, Professor Vibhuti Patel, ma'am, for providing opportunity to share my concerns regarding the union budget, union budget 24-25. First of all, when we talk about agriculture, there are two questions comes to my mind. First is that whether Indian agriculture as a sector is viewed from a gender perspective. That is the first question. For that, we have to look into the certain data. One is that female labor force participation. That female labor force participation in 1981 was 19.67, and it has increased only 5.83% in the last 30 years. That is the first question. When we talk about it, but when you look at the economic survey of 25-26, it has claimed that labor force participation rate as well as worker population ratio has increased, and there is a fall in unemployment rate. So we have to see whether it is like from a research perspective, we have to analyze these questions, whether it is true or not. In 2017-18, if you look at the data, India has reached highest unemployment rate in the history of labor survey in India. And also economy has also slowed down continuous 9 quarters from 2017 to 20. Then we have faced the COVID. During the COVID, all of us has analyzed the data. In that, there is an unemployment, there is an increase in the unemployment. Around 80 million workers went back to agriculture. Okay, in that, and also raising the there is a reverse migration. Most of them, they went back, and there is with this data, the government is saying there is a fall of unemployment by seeing the agricultural data. So that is the one thing. So labor force participation and worker population ratio has fallen. And also, if you look at the female labor force participation, the women also, they have joined in the agriculture. One way we could able to see that there is a feminization of agriculture. And by looking at this agricultural data, the government is saying from 2022 to 24, there is an 8 crore new jobs has been we could able to create a 8 crore new jobs, but where these new jobs have come? It has from the agriculture. So economic survey also, it has mentioned the real wages of the workers. That has also not raised. It has not risen. 80% of the workers in the last 5 years, there is a real wage has not increased. So when you look at the schemes of the agriculture in the present budget, one thing we could able to see that enhancement of credit availability with the guarantee cover for micro, small enterprises as well as MSMEs. And also there is an employment opportunities in footwear and leather products. There are some sectors they have allocated, but if you look at the agriculture as a sector, looking at the reverse migration and feminization of agriculture, does government allocate enough resources to address the needs of the women in agriculture? This we need to find the answer. My analysis showed that the allocation for agriculture in only in 2006 to 7, it has increased. That during that period, the government could able to allocate 20.8% in 2015-16. Afterwards, there is a very less allocation for the agriculture.
Madam, the budget talks about distributing more Kisan credit cards. So what do you have to say about, do women benefit?
Yes, ma'am, I am coming to that. That budget has talking about the agriculture is the sector of the future. In the budget itself, it has mentioned, and also they have brought the institutional reforms, like as you have mentioned, that enhancing loan limits of Kisan credit card schemes, and also modified interest subversion schemes. Like for example, the farmers, they could able to get the short-term loans up to like availing like a crop loans up to 3 lakh in an interest of 7% per annum per year. Then additional 3% subversion is also given to the farmers who promptly reply. But no, looking at the existing study, what I'm trying to say is that if you look at the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare also, there is no mention of women as a farmers. But the existing study clearly pointed out that around 60 to 70% of the farm activities are done by the women. But when you talk about these credit cards, I did some study in the field. This is purely handled by the male members, these credits. The activities, the agricultural activities are performed by the female, but when it comes to resources, it is controlled by the male. That was not addressed. Nowhere in the ministry as well as in the budget, they have not considered women as a farmers. The specific schemes, they considered without like a gender neutral terms, they are using a farmers. That is the first concern. Then access to affordable loans for the critical farmers. It's like that only thing is that I could able to say that the government, it has allocated like certain loans, like for example, allocation of 500 crores for fruits and vegetables schemes. And certain allocation has made, but these allocations, they are considering a farmers, but it is a very gender neutral term. That is, even Kisan credit card also, it's mostly handled by the male members. And also Gramin credit score, that will benefit India's landless cultivators. And if they don't have a landless cultivators, they don't have an access to institutional credit because of the lack of collateral. Thus, the keeping them in their mind, the government has provided, and it has given a framework in the budget for providing loans to the rural families and self-help groups. Only this, in this credit structure, mostly self-help groups, female the high percentage of the female self-help groups, they could able to get benefit of from this scheme. That is Gramin credit score, that will benefit the landless farmers, specifically on self-help groups. That is the thing. As well as the budget has announced two separate missions. One is for pulses and other is for like self-sufficiency, Atmanirbharta, self-sufficiency, that within 6 years, the government is expected to self-sufficient as far as pulses are concerned. But if you look at that, the 46% of the workforce are in agriculture, and it is highly feminized. And if you look at that, agriculture and allied sectors, they got only 0.36% increase in this budget compared to previous budget. As far as social sector is concerned, it is only 0.19% increase. Health, 0.05. So agriculture, if you say that, like loan limit has modified, there is an increase in the loan limit from 3 lakh to 5 lakh for the Kisan credit card. And for there is a new scheme called Makana Board. It has got 100 crore. It's specific to Bihar, as well as there is a women's role in agriculture, fisheries and dairy has neglected, and there is a negligence of minimum support price in a.
And also, Madam, handloom board. But like after agriculture, handloom is the most important sector for women's employment. That was also disbanded during the pandemic. So when you have a Makana board for one state, why not handloom board, which had a jurisdiction of all India jurisdiction? No, it would have like millions of women's lives are affected by handloom sector.
That is that. For example, if you talk about the agriculture, from sowing of the seeds till the harvesting crops, women are highly involved in every activities, but the institution itself very patriarchal. That is not reflecting in the budget. That is my concern. Like even also state is also failed to recognize the feminization of agriculture. That the same patriarchal attitude is reflecting in the minds of the policy makers also. As far as health is concerned, you have asked me second questions with regard to health, like specifically on elders as well as reproductive health. Quickly, I will, like whatever I have analyzed, quickly I share my thoughts. Then when we go for a discussion, I could able to share more points as far as agriculture and health is concerned. There is an increased support to establish the infrastructure and expansion of health workers, that is. And also, like the budget has aimed to make us life-saving drugs for treating cancer and other rare diseases. But here one question is, how far these budget concessions will get benefit of the patients? Whether the particular drug industry, whether they will allow this concession to like whether these patients could able to access these concessions. That is my questions, as well as coverage for health insurance. And more second significant thing is that there is a private sector led medical tourism, but here the budget totally neglected the primary health care, and it did not get any support. Whether when you asking about the elderly health as well as reproductive RCH, that is the primary healthcare support is very important. That primary healthcare institutions are the significant institutions provide the RCH as well as the elderly healthcare. Like for example, child nutrition program got needed support, but adolescent health and adult nutrition did not get any support in the budget. That is, we need to mention. Like there is an increase in the budget envisaged to increase 75,000 more undergraduate seats for medical education. But these undergraduate seats, after completing their graduation, will they able to go to the rural area or work? Like whether they could able to provide the primary health care for rural population specifically, who are not having an access to healthcare facilities, women, marginalized sections of the population, will they able to healthcare? That is not neglected in the budget. Merely 9.7% increased allocation as far as Ministry of Health is concerned, but National Health Mission got only 3.77%. NHM is the significant institutions to provide the RCH, as well as it is the significant institutions to provide the elderly care, as well as women and marginalized sections of the population, but it has got only 3.77% increase in the budget. More on like curative care, then promotion and decrease, like disease prevention. That is more important. Disease prevention and promotions are more important there than in the curative care. The budget concentrated more on the curative care rather than promotion and disease prevention. So this is the significant few points I could able to share. Now, when we go for a discussion, ma'am, I could able to share more on share more on these sectors, agriculture and elderly care as well as RCH.
Yeah, thank you all five of you for giving such a reflection in a very, very sharp and clear manner. First, in the second round, I would like to ask all of you one important question which the gender economists have raised, that we need Ministry of Gender Equality to be guided by and also with the vision of intersectional, participatory, decentralized, outcome-based, gender-responsive budgeting. What do you think that such ministry, if it is established, shall we have a more pointed this thing? That I will leave it. But now we have Dr. Aditi is also with us. So my question about the education sector, that Dr. Aditi Sawant, you have been with the Women's University. So what are your views about the current budget so far as the education sector is concerned? Please change your name also. It shows Priyanka Negi. Yeah, so write your name.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah. Thank you for this opportunity. So I would like to share my presentation.
Yeah.
So good afternoon. My special thanks to Professor Vibhuti Patel for this invitation. Today, I would like to speak about gender and social inclusion, and especially from the educationist point of view. So, I have identified certain areas on which I would like to focus. You won't find any specific order as such, but I find that while arranging all my thoughts, I have identified certain areas which I find crucial, especially from women and social inclusion point of view. So in this budget, there is a mention for gig workers, and gig worker, there is a provision in the budget to get identity cards and registration on e-Shram portal and healthcare under PM Jana Arogya Yojana. So I find that this is very important announcement. And when I look at the percentage of women into this gig industry of gig workers section, there is a recent report and it says that about 28% participation is from women workforce. Even in urban area where platform-based gig companies primarily operate, the average female employment rate in 2021 was about 6.9%. So it shows that gig industry or gig workforce is slowly increasing. People are not finding proper government job or 9-to-4 jobs, and I would say the young generation is moving towards this gig industry as a source of employment. But at the same time, I find that the women participation is not very satisfactory. But with the announcement of registration of e-Shram portal, if women can get this kind of registration and some assurance from the government, then I find that yes, there is a possibility that women workforce will increase in this category. Another area I identified, and this area is also very close to my heart since I have done a lot of research in the field of agriculture. So I find that there is a lot of scope, especially in agro-tourism, agriculture and tourism. And there are certain policy announcements in the budget. The first policy announcement, that is Kisan credit cards. Loan limit will be increased to 5 lakhs from 3 lakhs. So earlier it was 3 lakhs, now it has increased to 5 lakhs. So during my primary survey, I find that many women, because especially in rural areas, the population is primarily women dominated than the men dominated. So women and their children who are left behind in villages, they are actually looking for some source of livelihood, some employment, and especially these kind of small scale business or micro scale businesses. So with the announcement of Kisan credit card, where the credit limit has been increased to 5 lakhs, if it is implemented properly, then that will be a great help. Another scheme, that is Saksham Anganwadi and Poshan 2.0. In this scheme, government also mentioned about inclusion of vegetables and dal, because so far government has, although we provide midday meal scheme and there are other schemes which comes under Poshan Ahar, but for the first time, government has focused more on vegetables and dal, pulses, cereals, which will be a part of Anganwadi. To make the Anganwadi, or not just the faculty, but the students who are below 18, who are below 10 to 12 years old, it will be a good scheme for them. Another announcement, that is Mudra, that is micro units development and refinance loan for homestays. So when I'm thinking about what are the different sources of livelihood, a homestay is one of the source of livelihood, especially for village women. Even under Ministry of Tourism, because we were associated with Ministry of Tourism, so Ministry of Tourism is actually looking into women tourism. So what is women tourism? That the entire tourism network will be handled by women. They can work as tourist guide, they can provide homestays, they can provide food and other requirements which are required for the tourists. So government Ministry of Tourism is actually working how to create more employment opportunities for women. And under Mudra scheme, there are certain facilities available under that will help these women to create further source of livelihood. Top 50 tourist destination sites to be developed in partnership with states. Ease of travel connectivity to tourist destinations. I just mentioned in my PPT, but my main point over here is to check and explore that what are the new opportunities we can explore for women, because they are really looking for new avenues. Another area which is highlighted by the government, that is MSME, micro, small, medium enterprises. So let's look at the percentage of women in MSME right now. So women make up about 20% of the owners of micro, small, medium enterprises in India. And women also make up around or about 24% of the total workers in MSME. So it shows that MSME is another area where our women workforce is largely looking into as an opportunity. So let's see the recent announcements. So in the announcements, the finance minister mentioned about customized credit cards with 5 lakhs limit for micro enterprises registered on Udyam portal. For 5 lakhs first time entrepreneurs, including women, scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, and a new scheme to be launched to provide term loans up to 2 crore during next 5 years. And another area which I am very much optimistic, and that is to boost battery production, additional capital goods for electric vehicle and mobile battery manufacturing. These areas are exempted. I find that this scheme will certainly bring fillip to the industry, and it also create a good source of revenue for women, as the credit guarantee cover has also expanded from 5 crore to 10 crores, and for startup that is expanded from 10 crores to 20 crores. So I am highly optimistic about it, and what I feel is that government announces certain policies, right? And it has certainly good intention behind it. but the implementation is not happening on time or as per the requisite of the scheme. So there is a lot of training and handholding is required. And I personally feel that the role of educational institutions, role of technical institutions, and as well as government is equally important. So it's not just about announcing the policy, but the implementing the policy, and to ensure that the workforce is actively involved. That is very important. Next, that is education. So let's see
Madam, excuse me, before you go for education, I have a question that in
Yes.
all these schemes, whether it is Stand Up India, Startup India, Mudra Loan, Make in India, should we demand quota for women? Okay, the way we have, say, on all anti-poverty programs, we have 30% targets have to be women. So whether it is Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan or Narega, should we ask, because we have so many industrial training institutions, we have 300 in ITIs. But why don't
Yes.
they take women for? There are 125 courses. Ask Supriya. Women don't get. Women get only to tailoring. Only they will be get admission in tailoring or some earlier it was screen printing. But with
Yes.
all other when running the, so I think it's such a strong bias of the financial institutions, of the structures which are so male centered. Should we demand women's quota in all these schemes?
I'm
I want to
totally
know
with
your
you.
views.
I'm totally with you. And I mean, not just 30%, but I would say 50% quota is required. And especially, there is a lot of bias, gender bias, even while giving financial sanction for certain areas, like women are into tailoring, women are into cooking, women are into homestay kind of industry. So when I was preparing this presentation, I have selected certain photos, and you can see that women are into tailoring. So what I'm thinking that now we have to go beyond this, beyond tailoring and cooking and all those kind of basic services which are offered by women. And now we have to think that women who are working in the research and development area, women who are working in industries, but I'm totally with you that that we do not find women into all these important areas. But somewhere I feel that now we have to struggle on our own, and we have to, I mean, as an educationist, I feel that as a principal of SNDT, if I can promote my girls into these areas, then yes, then the task is
But
done.
that will happen only when the state demands, government demands that 30% quota. Like Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, initially only boys were going. Their sisters had taken over as a child labor, no? But the moment quota was decided that minimum 30% of the beneficiary of Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan have to be girls, then scenario changed because there was a
Change,
mandate,
yeah.
no? So,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So
But
that,
I'm
okay.
totally with you, and this quota is required at least in the initial stages. Otherwise, it's very difficult to bring women and girls into the mainstream.
And that has been the Maharashtra's experience. In 1991, we got
Yeah.
30% quota in engineering colleges. So now you see the
Yes.
state has the highest number of women engineers. Yes, madam, go
Certainly.
ahead with your second
Thank you,
about
ma'am.
education.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much. So the next area, that is education, and let's see.
Make it, yeah, correct.
Yeah, I
Fine.
think just last slide, I think so.
No,
So, all
I
right.
just said that make it a slideshow mode. It has happened.
Yes,
but
yes.
yeah.
So, according to the latest data from All India Survey on Higher Education, approximately 48% of students enrolled in higher education are girls. So, it shows that the percentage of school enrollment has gone up, especially for girl child. And at the same time, I'm just looking at number of faculty members, female faculty members. That percentage is also around 53.3%. That is, school teachers are female. This is the recent statistics. So no doubt in education, we find more and more women participation as a faculty as well as student. But there are certain areas where we need to work. And as ma'am just mentioned appropriately, that when we think about women empowerment, there we identify certain areas like cooking and stitching and tailoring and all that, or nursing. But now we have to go beyond that. So let's see the policies announced by the government, and I find that these policies will certainly bring positive impact. One policy we just mentioned, that is Saksham Anganwadi and Poshan 2.0. Atal Tinkering Labs, that is 50,000 labs to be set up in government schools in next 5 years. As far as I'm concerned, I have come across some schools where they have started working on Atal Tinkering Lab, and especially government schools. So here, government schools where children come from lower financial background, they also get the chance. They will also get the opportunity to work in computer labs. The next announcement was Center of Excellence in Artificial Intelligence for Education, with a total outlay of rupees 500 crores. And what is very important is broadband connectivity to be provided to all government secondary schools and primary health centers in rural areas. This is very important because we all know that during COVID, we all suffer, and especially the schools from villages. They suffer a lot because they are not having broadband connectivity. They're not having any access to modern devices, or even or a mobile. So I feel strongly that if government can implement this, whatever is announced in the government, if it is implemented, it will bring lot of change in the overall education sector. And when I think from a woman point of view, because a female is comfortable when better services, better infrastructure is provided. So with more artificial intelligence and broadband connectivity, I find it more suitable, especially for women faculty as well as students over there. However, as far as education is concerned, male female gender bias should not be there. But unfortunately, even after 75 years of independence, we find that there is a strong gender bias in education sector. But I feel that if government implements these policies and announcements, it will bring lot of change in the education sector. In next sector that I would like to talk about, and that is health sector. Let's see the current statistics. That the current statistics says that in India, women account for a higher percentage of cancer cases than men. And it's not just cancer. There are so many other diseases of physical, mental, several problems and diseases a girl child as well as a woman has to face just because she is a woman. I find that there are certain policy announcements are positive in this budget, like daycare cancer centers in all district hospitals, 36 life-saving drugs, medicines in exempted list, 6 medicine in 5% duty list, 37 medicines and 13 new patient assistance program in exempt list. And these medicines for rare diseases, cancer, and severe chronic diseases. Now, although we find that this kind of help or this kind of assistance is not huge, no doubt about it. But yes, certainly that it shows that there is an awareness from the government point of view that the number of cancer cases among women has gone up, especially breast cancer, cervical cancer. So if daycare cancer centers start in all district hospitals, and if life-saving drugs and medicines get certain exemptions, that will help our women for a better life and better health.
So Dr. Aditi,
So,
there is also, government has also said that every year 50,000 new cases of cancer are added. Breast cancer, for their center is very, starting a center within PHC is extremely important step. But at the same time, WASH agenda, and I think Supriya can also tell us that reproductive tract infection, that also leads to cervical and vaginal cancer and uterine cancer. So I think even for WASH, we have to see to it that WASH budget is also gender responsive, no? Because this is the major reason for. So I just wanted to supplement that. Yeah.
Yes. Ma'am, there is one more point which I would like to mention, because there is lot of thrust on business, because because now that the whole world has gone up undergone a lot of change. That 9 to 4 job structure is completely dismantled. Jobs are not easily available, not just in India, but globally they are not available. And that's why there is a lot of pressure, especially on women, to run the house, right? And now I find that many women, even from lower middle class or even from the lower state of the society, they are looking towards different sources of avenue. It can be a small business, it can be trade and all that. So in this budget, I find that certain positive announcements just focus on those policies which can bring change and positive change. From trade point or from business point, government is keen on export promotion like duty-free inputs, and especially for handicraft and leather sector. So even in the MS industry, second is toys or toy sector, and the third is food processing. So government identified these three sectors under MSME also, and especially from women centric. Although I'm really sorry to bring that gender aspect again, but yes, it's a fact that many women they find solace in these sectors, especially in food industry or toys industry or leather industry. So government has announced duty free, especially in the handicraft and leather sectors. Its government is also working on digital public infrastructure, that is Bharat Trade Net for international trade, that will be set up as a unified platform for trade documentation and financing solutions. And lastly, what I find very important, because we were also working on this idea during COVID, and that is India Post. That using India Post as a medium to connect farmers from villages and the market in the cities. So in this budget, our finance minister announced India Post as a medium promote the business, which will provide institutional account services, direct benefit transfer, cash out, and EMI pickup, credit services to micro enterprises, insurance, and other digital services. No doubt that Post is already converted into bank. It is working as a bank. But these are the additional facilities, especially for micro enterprises and digital services, insurance. This is the add-on benefit which is announced in this budget. So sectors which I identify, and whatever announced in the budget, no doubt government will work, that much fund will be sanctioned. But when the funds trickle down to the lowest strata of the society, at that time the beneficiary should be alert that these are the benefits, or these are the avenues which are made available, and how the last beneficiary of our country is in a position, whether the person is in a position to encash the benefits. That is very important. And that's why I strongly feel that the role of educational institutions, role of skill institutions, which provide the skill education, is very important. Under Ministry of Skill Development, the government has already started registration of young women, young people. So there are certain areas which are identified by the government which can provide quick jobs. So it's not the case that the women have to confine only to certain areas like cooking and nursing, or hotel industry. There are other areas like artificial intelligence. There are digitalization of the services. These are the upcoming areas, and there are so many areas which I would maybe I can mention later. Because there are so many areas where they will find quick job and opportunities. So when I look at this budget, just to sum up, and I identified these certain points which I find that if they are implemented properly, and especially our women workforce, and ma'am, as you suggested, with 50% reservation or 50% quota for women, it will certainly bring positive change in the overall scenario.
Thank you, Professor Ajiti. Yeah,
thank you so much.
Ajiti Sawant. Yeah, you from the Women's University, you are also exhibitating the optimism of the Women's University, which talks about Sanskrit Astri Parashakti, an empowered woman, educated woman is the source of unlimited power. But now I come again to Dr. Mani Miklai, and the one aspect which has been left out, and that is of implication of the budget on scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, persons with disability, and the gender minorities and religious minorities. Yes, Dr.
Yeah, and that is, of course, some of them have been touched by others also. But in general, if you look into the budget allocation, this 26-25, there has been a reduction in the allocations. So the overall budget allocations of the ministries catering to the marginalized sections of the society has been quite minimum. And that is one important fact. And the Ministry of Tribal Affairs, there has been an increase 14%. Whereas in the social justice empowerment and empowerment of people with disabilities, it is less than 5%. Maybe given the size of that particular component, it would have been, but still it is very minimum. And in the women and you also pointed out in other speakers also, Women and Child Development Ministry, there is a meager increase of 3% over the current allocation. So coming to the analysis of course, one about the education and health sector was widely discussed in the other sessions by the speakers. But still one important concern is about the scholarship for students from the marginalized section. And we have been telling this, that the higher education, women's participation in higher education would go, and even the participation in research will also go up if the fellowships are being offered and scholarships were being offered. But there were some cuts and some of them were discontinued. So that is one important. There are a number of new initiatives like internship and other things in the context of employment, but at the same time, in the new national education policy component, and some of the Vishwakarma initiatives, etc. But this encouraging the girls to go for higher education and also to continue the research. It is very much kind of frustrating that it has gone down. And there are also a massive reduction in the allocation. Some of them got discontinued and reduction also. And there is no significant increase in the allocation of expansion of physical infrastructure. That is very important. And personal education and health sector, particularly the disability. We were talking about disabilities, and there are a number of institutions, whether it is the school education departments, schools or higher education institutions, the disabled friendly infrastructure could not be installed, and even if it is installed, it is not being maintained. So that really requires the allocation, and that is missing. And as far as the marginalized, particularly the self-help group women are concerned, it was already pointed out about both Uma and later Aditi also about agriculture sector, where the credit limit for the women self-help groups has been increased. And there is also a positive step towards improving the access to agriculture credit as per the data provided by the Labour Bureau. But one important concern here is again the real wages, whether irrespective of gender, whether women, men or trans, the real wages, particularly the rural real wages, remain stagnant, and it is not really capturing to the inflation, which they really bear the brunt, because the organized sector workers and salaried class, they are able to get the increment in terms of improved SBA, etc. Then it was also informed there in the very economic survey last year, 2025-26, that there is a reduction in the real income for wages or salary employed, salary group of men and women. And another important fact observed was that the private financial institutions are really determining the life of women in terms of borrowing, because I already pointed out that the women feel comfortable approaching the private and the non-bank financial institutions, not the formal sector. I'm trying to tell that it is not the banks, that the formal credit means the non-bank. Also, sometimes it will be formal, but there are other institutions where it is. Then 60% of the credit women self-help groups. In some of the studies, it was mentioned that it is they rely on private banks NFIs and non-bank financial institutions with a high interest rate. That is the important thing, because part of their earning, they are operate in a very micro scale, and that also the profit, whatever they earn, also taken away by the high interest rate being charged by these institutions, the so-called informal institutions or private institutions. So keeping that in mind, of course, this announcement of access to credit in the agri credit and also credit limit, increasing the credit limit for the women self-help groups, trying to kind of understand and at least whether there will be a recognition of women who are engaged in, whether it is marginal farmer or cultivators as farmers, because recognizing the women who've been contributing more than 60% of the work not being recognized as farmers, and at least the credit access and making them to take up either in the farming or non-farming will make them get their work recognized. And if that is done, it is fine. Otherwise, these private banks continue, and equally bad this microfinance institutions, they will continue to exploit the women, and they remain operating with the microcredit alone, these SHGs, and they get into the debt traps, which is often happening in several occasions. And if we are not returning the money on time to these non-formal institutions, they will also be kind of dangers of coercive treatment and the other issues they face. And therefore, in this context, it is like on the one hand, the given credit should be on the other and there has to be also, they go for work, the workplace inclusion, the safety, and the kind of measures to improve the labor force participation, because that is one of the underlying principles there, also there underlying there in the Viksit Bharat statement. They are crucial, that is to be built. And need to address also the systemic barriers, which was already mentioned other speakers also. Regarding the minorities, I'd like to again bring there are a number of areas in which there has been gaps. But at least the budget allocation, we can see that the actual expenditure of Ministry of Minority Affairs has particularly been very low throughout these 3-4 years, not just this year.
5-6 years.
That is, in the current year also, it has been kind of revised to 8.1 from, I mean, the increase only I can say from 1,868 crores in 2024 revised estimate to 3,000. So this is small increase. But at the same time, I was talking about the scholarship and closure of many schemes. So with that closure of many schemes at the ministry and lower level of budget utilization, both go together to kind of play on the sufferings and other issues of the vulnerable minority communities. And of course, among the minority communities, Muslim minority, particularly the education of the girls, which we are really emphasizing, and there are many girls are coming forward, and several institutions, minority institutions, are catering to their need, particularly the higher education also. So in order to kind of match with those interests, it is necessary that budget allocation will also be should also be more. So as of now, we are not clear about as to what policy direction the government is taking for the minority communities with this increased allocation, of course. So overall budget kind of give a lot of scope, I mean, hopes, positive hopes, the moment you look into that. But if you further analyze, and if you go into the deeper analysis, then how these allocations would be, whether it will be sufficient, whether it is increase over the earlier allocations, all these things are, if you kind of dissect and analyze, then it is giving a different picture. So there are also, of course, it is political, and you try to keep, the ruling government try to keep the kind of vote, like forthcoming elections, and therefore some schemes are being reinforced and even allocated more to certain states, and it is not happening in other states where it is not, I mean, immediately there is any election. So given that, again, we reinforce the fact that there is a need to be inclusive, where the CST, the minorities, the tribal, and of course the transgender also is very important. That is one of the neglected areas where they have been demanding, and there are a lot of state initiatives in this regional context. And the center is also making strides to capture their need, but still the allocation has been very, very minimal, and that should also be. So given this, all the minority communities, disability, the transgender communities, the minorities, and the SCSTs, particularly there, the tribal communities, and for also Northeast, these allocations have been kind of informing us very minimum. It is not up to the requirement, and it is also the responsibility of the central state, building the central state relationship, which is missing in certain context where the government is do not have the double engine government being ruled, and that should also be addressed. It shouldn't be kind of penalizing the people there where the ruling government is are different. So in that perspective, I'd like to re-emphasize that inclusive policies with more allocation towards this marginalized communities, the entire umbrella is the need of our, if you want to really talk about Vikshit Bharat and also the SDGs, which we are claiming that the gender equality is one of the areas, one of the major goals to be achieved. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we are moving to this. There is a question from Madam Fatima. Would you like to go? Would you unmute and speak, or otherwise she has written 3 questions in Q&A box. Fatima Tariq, would you like to unmute and speak?
Yes, I'll.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah. Otherwise, she has written the questions in the Q&A. So can Purvi, Purvi Narayanji, can you read?
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so the first question says, to what extent does the 2025 to 26 gender budget translate policy commitments into actionable change? And she has also have another question. It says, does gender budget prioritize substantive gender equality over performative allocation, and does it exhibit sectoral or class biases in resource distribution?
Yeah, she has come already. Purvichi, yeah. She has come. She can, Fatima ji, you can unmute and speak. Yeah. Yeah. Hello, Fatima ji. Fatima Tariq ji, can you unmute and speak? Hello. Are you there? Okay, so I think first 2 questions you can. Who would like to take it? Professor Paramita, Uma, Professor Manimekla. Manimekla has spoken. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, looking into that, of course, thanks to Shruti who presented also. So definitely we appreciate the increase in at least the percentage of gender budget towards total budget, and we only feel and hope that it will be turning into the actionable strategies. And of course, as Vibhuti pointed out, there is also a responsibility from both the center and the state. So whatever is being allocated is to properly be utilized. And we have already pointed out the gaps. So those gaps also, like whichever the area in which the allocation has been quite low, is supposed to be addressed. So in that way, definitely the first question is that it has to be turned into an actionable strategy, whatever the budget allocation. That is the ultimate aim also. And if it doesn't, the gap should be located, and accordingly each stakeholder or its ministry, whichever is responsible. And of course, these priority must also be on the vulnerable sections of the population, the marginalized, because now whatever the middle class sentiments have been captured, it is to kind of, obviously because for the past 2-3 budgets, there is an expectation. But at the same time, it cannot be at the cost of the allocation which was cut there for the other general budget. So that I would like to underline. Thank you.
Second question, gender budget.
What is the second question, Vibhuti? Should I or anybody else?
I think Paramita ji can also answer. Uma also. Whosoever.
Okay.
What is the second question, ma'am? Can we again?
Yeah. The performative allocation and exhibit the sectoral or class biases in the resource distribution. Paramita ji, you can take it up. Yeah.
Sectoral and class biases, these are always there. It's not so easy to get out of that. But what we should remember is if we want to be inclusive, we should take care that all programs cover all areas and people from all areas get some benefit. That is about the implementation by the implementation agencies. What more can be said about it?
Third question is also there. Yeah.
What is the third question, ma'am? Actually, along with the Professor Paramita, I would like to add one point regarding.
Yeah.
Actually, there is a critic on implementation always as far as India is concerned, there is a critic of implementation part.
Yes.
When it comes to implementations, there are many critical questions arises. Even allocation also, if we made allocations also, how much we could able to implement those policies successfully in the ground level. That is always we have to critically look into it. Some states, they successfully implement certain schemes. Some states not able to implement successfully. So it is important to concentrate on implementation part. That is very important. Whether it's a district level or below district level, even some schemes. When it comes to Narega, it's mostly Gram Panchayats. They are the responsible for implementing successfully. If the Panchayat president, they are very sensitive towards this particular scheme, they could be able to implement very successfully.
Yeah, but we have also seen that even at the top level, so many schemes such as Nirbhaya Fund, since 2013, 1,000 crores are allocated. But hardly any state have, only 4 or 5 states have sent proposal because gender-based violence is not their priority. So it is right from the secretariat of various state governments, they have not considered it as a priority. So I think it is very important that centrally sponsored schemes, where they are backed by the state governments also, no?
Yes,
so those biases also will have to. So those biases also will have to be challenged. No, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. This small example here I would like to bring with regard to Nirbhaya Fund. Even in universities, they can install the cameras to reduce the gender-based violence. Recently, there was an incident in Chennai. The most of the cameras in a particular university, it is not in a working condition. So you are absolutely right. Implementation, when it was in a centrally sponsored schemes, even state government below state district level or panchayat level, sensitivity towards gender issues is very important to implement successfully.
I would like to talk about one more example. Like we wanted, we hailed really the DBT, direct benefit transfer schemes, which requires your bank accounts and link with Aadhaar card. In many cases, sometimes it happens so that the beneficiary cannot register because of some mismatch, cannot link with Aadhaar and gets out of the benefit role. So what we think is technically possible in the fields, always it doesn't become reality. So we should also be looking into the way we should address all these ground level issues. In implementation, also implementation agencies face so many problems.
You are on mute, Vibhuti ji.
Very important issue is about the demand by the gender economists that we should have a Ministry of Gender Equality. I would like to know your views, and this is the final round. So what all you want to say about the future pathway for ensuring gender inclusive and social sector inclusive budget? All 5 of you have 2 to 3 minutes. You can wrap up and provide the direction. So can we start with Professor Paramita?
I think this is a very important and very timely suggestion that we should have a separate ministry which will look into how gender equality aspects, gender gaps are tackled, spatially. It will be focused and it will address those issues which do not come up in a general program. I'm absolutely with it.
Professor Manimeklai? Yeah. Dr. Aditi Sawant? Yeah.
Namaste, ma'am. So, I'm completely with you. As you said that reservation of quota is required. No doubt that despite of talent and the natural strength of a woman is deliberately kept away from the mainstream. So we need to have certain protection. And it's not just the workplace, it's not just a certain sector, but what I feel that the women reservation has to be there in politics, because women need to have power, and unless and until a woman is not in the power, it's very difficult to implement all these policies successfully. So far so good. The mindset of the overall society is that woman is always at the receiving end. So it can be government, it can be the head of the house or the family. They will give something and the woman will always will be at the receiving end. Now we have to change the trend that woman will not be at the receiving end. It can be any policy of the government, but the woman will be there in power. And it's very difficult for a woman to get into politics or to get into important decision making roles. And that's why I strongly believe that in such budgets there should be government cannot announce, but some certain kind of leadership programs for women. There should be some financial aid or financial help at the same time announcement of institutions which will promote leadership among women. This is my take on this. Thank you.
So I think it also takes care of what Fatima ji has asked, that if there are such a, like, how will government manage the social dynamics and potential backlash in regions where traditional gender roles are deeply at risk? I think here comes the role of everyone. All the state and non-state actors will have to work. So civil society organizations, like community-based organizations like Supriya Jan, they have been doing it day in and day out. And can you just speak, Supriya ji, about how this social dynamics and potential backlash your organization is tackling, and can it be replicated all throughout the country? Yeah.
I also had 2 points which I had missed earlier. So to conclude, one is about addressing unfair care burden is nowhere it is looked into. Secondly, about WASH, which I forgot to mention, water and drinking water and sanitation. There has been crores of budget for both this, but most of the budget goes into infrastructure. And overall, when we think about these and other areas, mindset shift, behavior change, awareness program. So thinking about funds for all these. Otherwise, infrastructures are being erected and operation and maintenance remains a big questions ahead. When you were asking about the separate ministry, I remembered Niti Aayog had suggested implementing Gender Budgeting Act to institutionalize gender budget across ministries. So, I mean, I don't know. We have to talk about
Niti Aayog had prepared the draft. Yeah.
Yes, and it had suggested for it. So
Niti Aayog had suggested gender budget act.
Yes.
Niti Aayog had suggested that we should have gender budget act. Yeah.
Gender budget act, and I was thinking, can this will it be helpful in institutionalizing the gender budget across ministries? I don't know, because it is all about mindset, about how we look at it. Otherwise, acts and laws will come and go.
Because if we see the current scenario, it is 28 states have started are doing gender budgeting, out of which and so many still 10 more have not even started. And those who are doing it, there is a lot of mix up, because the ABC part, they get
Yes,
mixed up. So
that
many
is-
common schemes are also listed as a gender budgeting. So a lot has to be done. We have a, yes, in terms of encouraging states and union territories to also start doing gender budgeting.
And as we say that collection and publication of gender segregated data in order to identify and track the gap, that is also important. And we have also talked about the correlation between the funding and the outcome. That will also play a crucial role in everything that we plan to do.
Correct. Yeah. All of you have given ample examples of the gap between allocated amounts, so with the outlay and the outcome also, and also actual expenditure. So that is very important. Yeah.
Thank you, Vibhuti ji, for this. I mean, it was really learning and insightful session for me working at the ground, because it sometimes becomes difficult. What is there and what is happening on the ground, there is a huge gap. So I sometimes feel agitated, but it was really enriching discussion listening to all of you. So thank you to Vibhuti ji as well as IMPRI for this insightful session.
And we know that how your Right to Pee campaign also did the segregation, did the deconstruction of the sanitation budget of Bombay Municipal Corporation, and still we have not been able to achieve the goal. And it's a long struggle
and
that is still going on. So
we have a gender budget for last 11 years in Municipal Corporation of Mumbai for women's sanitation. But again, as we discussed, implementation is a big issue.
Correct. Yeah. So I think, that is very important. So now we can wrap up today's discussion. I think it was a very important, rich discussion with a lot of regional flavor that we got, and also the ground level experiences and case studies. And we all understand that budget represents the financial plan, and it is most important significant policy instrument of the state government, like for establishing macroeconomic stability, fiscal efficiency, strategic priority, and most importantly for ensuring equitable distribution of the national resources. And that's why today's panel discussion, which is focusing on gender responsive budgeting and social sector budgeting, also brought out very important insights, starting from Professor Paramita's Saha's presentation on the macroeconomic reality, and after that coming to the social sector and the gender budgeting and systemic barriers that we are facing, need for gender disaggregated data, the question of reproductive health care, so many vector-borne diseases, primary health care versus the lifestyle diseases that gender minorities and women face, and some of the interventions like when it comes to one-stop crisis center, which is now known as Sakhi Kendra, or the facilities for range of services in terms of police assistance, legal aid, case management, psychosocial counseling, temporary support services that are required to prevent gender-based violence, which has increased many-fold in the post-pandemic period. So I think that is also a major challenge we are facing so far as the budget is concerned. And then the question of nominal increase in education budget or food security budget or JJM or PS Awas Yojana or NREGA or PM Gram Sadak Yojana, Jal Jeevan Mission, National Social Assistance Scheme. I think that was also explained to us by our panelists like Professor Mani Meklai and Dr. G. Uma. And last thing, which is very important, that now we have nearly 1.8 million women who are in the Panchayati Raj institutions. They are the first person contact for the communities, both in the rural and urban areas. And if we talk about only democratic decentralization, which is not backed by the financial decentralization, I think that is also a major problem. So in the union budget, you may have many states and state the sponsored scheme, as well as the central scheme and the centrally sponsored scheme, both types of schemes. But if it doesn't percolate down to the Panchayati Raj institution level, then we suffer. The question of minorities, Dalit and Adivasi, Muslim persons with disabilities, senior citizens, gender minorities such as transgender community, they are found to be neglected by the community. A lot of budget audits have come up from their sectoral interest by the organizations over last 4-5 days. Last 4 days, we have seen so many resolution statements, reports by this organization. So it's very important to realize and accept that ensuring social justice in fiscal reforms and enhancing equity in tax governance and increasing the financial allocation to this social sector is extremely important for building the economy on the founding principles of care and well-being for all. So Union Budget 2025-26 says, if we see from this measuring rod, then we have a long way to go to reach the gender and social sector inclusive budgets. Thank you very much. And now I request the IMPRI team to take.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Yeah, so as we come to the end of today's discussion,
Good evening, ma'am.
I, Purvin Ryan, researcher
Yeah, hi,
at
Purvi. Yes, hi,
Yeah,
Purvi. Can we
Sure,
hold just
sure,
for 1
sure.
second? Ma'am, I just wanted to,
No worries.
yes, if it's okay with the panelists, can I just wanted to ask one question. I'm not sure if I missed it in the budget, but on the Lakpati Didi scheme, an update, like how did it go in this budget? And like if you have any comments on its significance and what improvements does it need, or is it on ground level, how is it turning out? If we can get a comment by the panelists on that one. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Dr. Uma, about Lakpati Didi scheme. Yeah. Please unmute yourself.
Good evening, everybody. With regard to Lakpati Didi scheme, in some states, they could, for example, Uttar Pradesh, in some states, they could able to implement. Like, for example, in Haryana, in some states, we have done a small, like a ground level study that we could not able to see that much success.
So what are the limitations that you found in terms of forward and backward linkages, or the response from the bureaucracy, or response from the various departments of the state government?
One is the response from the various departments of the state governments. That is, I could able to see the limitations. Second one is that forward and backward linkages. That also there is a limitations. Like in some few states, there is a very less response from the state governments as far as Lakpati scheme is concerned, because we have specifically we have done a groundwork to include those schemes as part of our diploma in women's empowerment and development. That is this that program itself we have designed for like self-help groups.
Does it take care of Ground Didi scheme also?
Yes, ma'am. Ground Didi scheme, when it comes to Ground Didi scheme with regard to agriculture, same like, for example, in Haryana, it's very successful. Yeah. But in Tamil Nadu, just now they have started it. That too in a specific area it has started. Here also, I would like to say that implementations, we need to take care of it. How much we could able to sensitive, like how much we can able to sensitize the district level officials, how far they are gender transformative in their approaches. That is very important.
Because that's what in some states they have said that we have this drawn, we have learned that we have taken the training, but what do? We are not getting any assignments, no, or the offers.
Yes.
Yeah. So the coordination of women elected representatives, the local bureaucracy, district authority, and this thing, the what you call service take, the demand side, all of them
all
has to
three
coordinate.
has to coordinate, then only we could able to see the success. That's why finally I would like to add only one point. Like now most of the states, women and social justice department of that, also Ministry of Women and Social Justice. Instead, my suggestion is that Ministry of Gender, something we need to look at gender transformative approaches should be there in every aspects. There is simultaneously there is a discussion going on about gender neutral thing. How far as a like a feminist economist, like we put forward very strongly about gender transformative approaches in each and every government policies. That is very important, very significant.
Thank you. Would you like to say anything, Professor Paramita? Please unmute. Yeah. Has Lakshpati Didi scheme and Dron Didi scheme, are they implemented in Northeast?
In my state, I have seen Lakshpati Didi scheme is being taken up quite gleefully, with glee by the women. About drone, I do not know. I have no information. And what I feel is all these programs are like, supply driven.
Right.
It's not demand driven. Those who will work, those who will, materialize the scheme, they should have their own need for this.
Right.
So this aspect is not at all taken care of.
But that can happen only when we have a participatory process, no? So gender
Yes,
responsive
without
participatory
that,
process,
do you think
then only
any
it
process can be
happen.
successful without involving the you then give training
No.
and it ends there? And I have seen people
Correct.
for skill training, different skills, one after another. One person is coming and taking training for 21 days, 1 month. They're taking training, and it doesn't reflect into any income generating activity. Unless that demand is there, or you can motivate the person to do that, or handhold with them, these schemes, how can this be successful? There should be, lot of thought should be given to that. And regarding the bias and all that, I was
Skill per se doesn't take you anywhere.
Yeah. Also, regarding the
Yeah,
implementing agencies and persons involved in it, they also need some training. This aspect is also not looked into. The gender bias is not so easy to come out of. These ideas and these biases are so deeply entrenched. Everybody into the doing of things should be trained, should have some exposure, sensitization. That is what I feel.
That's very important. Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Priyanka ji, for asking this very important question. Yeah. Yes,
Thank you,
Pradeep,
ma'am.
now
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. All right, thank you, panelists, for answering the last question and answering in such great details. Shall we proceed with a formal vote of thanks?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so as we come to the end of today's discussion, I, Purvi Narayan, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, would like to propose the formal vote of thanks on behalf of IMPRI, Gender Impact Studies Center, GISC. I would like to thank all of you for attending today's deliberation, a panel discussion on gender, social inclusion, and Union Visit 2025-26. We are grateful to our chair for the session, Professor Vibhuti Patel, and our esteemed panelists, Professor N. Manimkalai, Professor Paramita Saha, Dr. Aditi Sawant, and Dr. G. Uma, and Ms. Supriya Jain, and last we had Dr. Sang Mitra Dhar. For taking part in the discussion and enlightening us. We thank all our participants who have raised pertinent questions and actively participated in today's deliberation. We are grateful if you are watching us later on YouTube channel or listening to us on our various podcasts or reading our publications. We look forward to welcoming you for our next budget deliberation today at 6:30 p.m. for Population, Health and Union Budget 2025-26. You may also find more thematic events and book discussion under the IMPRI Web Policy Talk series. We hope you continue to join in future to our IMPRI Web Policy Talk and Web Policy Learning. Wishing you a good evening. Thank you.
Yeah. please announcement that that this panel discussion has been streamed on YouTube, in all social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook Live, and also on WhatsApp. I have also copy pasted the link in a chat box. You can also use that link for watching the panel discussion of today. And all other panel discussions are also there of this whole union budget series in the public domain.
Yes, absolutely. Participants can refer to that link
and thank
and
you,
watch
Purvi.
all the videos on our YouTube
Yeah.
channel. Absolutely.
Thank you all. Yeah,
Thank you so
thank
much,
you
ma'am.
all, my
Thank-
co-panelists, and also Purviji for moderating the session. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's
Yeah,
a learning experience for
For all
me.
of all of us. You made such studied presentation, all of you. And Professor Paramita set the tone, so which was very important. Macroeconomic framework we got. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.